We're up and live.
We are up and live. Let's see. And yep. Okay. Well, welcome everybody to another Conversations with the Crew. I'm Ryan Pernell with a Greater Applegate, and I'm here with Fire Chief Mike McLaughlin, um, the man, the man and the myth. Today we're talking about ways in which Applegaters can get to know fire risk on their properties and ways that they can reduce it. It's March now. Fire season is right around the corner. I think it was started in May last year,
That is correct.
which was early.
That is correct.
Yeah, any indication on if that's going to be the
Uh,
case this
that's
year?
that process is historically done by a couple factors. Where we're at temperature-wise, what our fuel moisture levels are at, and then ODF is the one that dictates when actual fire season's called.
Mm-hmm.
So I know over the years it's been somewhere around June, beginning of June, first week of June. Last year, because of the warm up, the lack of rain the year before, kind of drought conditions, ODF decided to move forward and call it earlier than June 1st, which threw a lot of people off track.
Yeah, yeah, clearly. Well,
But before we get started, I just want to let everybody know we're happy to participate here in a collaborative environment with the AGA and have this opportunity to speak to our Facebook viewers that have Facebook out here in the Applegate. Pleasure. Thank you for joining us. And then thank you for Ryan for her time to make all of this happen. So we're going to hopefully be doing a series of monthly events and eventually maybe even get it down to a couple times a week as we ramp up into fire season and then move forward. That's our goal. That's our intention. So,
yeah, absolutely, and I'm really excited about it too.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so not knowing when exactly fire season's going to happen year to year, but it's never too early to get started on preparing your property. So, to get us started, can you just go over some of the major factors that contribute to increased risk on folks' property around here?
Yeah. So, a lot of where we live, we consider this the wildland urban interface, otherwise known as WUI. That's how we mention it in the fire service. And so, with that WUI component and some of the things risk assessment wise you can do on your property today, and that is really start at your driveway. You want to make sure that your fuels are cleared, your trees are limbed up to 13 feet if they're overhanging the driveway. So that way fire resources can get in to the property. We also want to make sure that we've got a good 4 foot different buffer from the roadway out into the sides of your driveway if you have that ability. That way we're eliminating those fuels, so if it's a fast moving fire, we still may be able to get in without getting trapped. And then as you progress up your driveway, you get up into your resident, then we want to start looking around at what type of fuel models do we have. And for most of us out here in the Applegate, we have a lot of timber around our properties, and we also have a lot of flashy fuels. Grasses and the manzanitas will enhance that, the buckbrush, getting up into a little bit greater fuel component there. So we want to start at our house. And here in Southern Oregon, Josephine and Jackson County have adopted the 100-foot clearance of your property for all new construction. And we are encouraging landowners to continue down that path of trying to, whether it's a brand new construction or it's older construction, is to try to do your best to get that 100-foot buffer. And really, we're looking at that 100-foot buffer as being a tool that we can use to potentially not have to park a fire engine at the resident. We may come in, we may evaluate, say yes, they've got a great fuel break around their property. We don't see it to be a major threat, and then we can move on to the next property and evaluate that. And then if we can get 2 or 3 properties like that in a row, now one engine can mitigate that process potentially. And it helps us with that. So we start at the house. And I encourage everybody to look at your vegetation. What type of greenery do you have around your home? Do you have bark in your planters that are all the way up against the house? That is not a good recommendation. We recommend that you don't have the bark all the way up against your house. As we learned with that, several structures burned because they had bark in their planters, and it contributed to enhancing the fire activity in the Alameda fire and contributed to potentially catching some of those uh, resident structures or commercial structures on fire. I witnessed that firsthand. So we want to look at what type of vegetation. So what's good to use around your home? And so we're looking at rock, crushed granite, that's otherwise known as DG, decomposed granite, and then making flower beds around those types of ground covers. Grass. There are numerous amounts of different vegetation that you can put that is fire resistant plants. There was a book published, and I know you won't be able to see this, but I'm going to read who it was published by. This is by it's called the Fire Resistant Plants for Home Landscapes, and it was done as a partnership for Pacific Northwest Extension Publication, Oregon State University, Washington State University, and University of Idaho. And again, it was published in August of 2006. Great information. It gives you a lot of good types of vegetation from trees to ground plants that are fire resistive and would help with that buffer.
That's awesome. Where might somebody find one of those
So
pamphlets?
here at Fire District 9, we do have some left. We used to have a whole couple cases of them, but over the years, people have come in and requested the book. So we do still have some left here. We're attempting to try to get more. Don't know how soon that's going to be. I would say we probably have about maybe a dozen left. So if you're interested, you can come down to the fire station. We do have numerous information for you from Living with Wildfire, a homeowner's guide, Josephine and Jackson County integrated fire plans. There's some discussion about those in there. We've got Be Ember Aware, and then we've got another pamphlet regarding Firewise. So again, back to your question, then once we kind of start looking at our property, what's around our resident? So we want to try to give ourselves originally to start with maybe a 30 to 50 foot buffer, and then work your way out to that 100-foot mark if you have the 100 feet. A lot of questions, a lot of people ask me when I walk around their properties, and we'll get into that here shortly, is, well, I don't have 100 feet. That goes into my neighbor's property.
Yeah.
We understand that. We're not asking you to take it down to bare minimal soil, but we're asking you to remove a lot of the ladder fuels that maybe get up into the tree canopies, and that carries embers. We're looking at trying to buffer stacking your firewood up against your house, because if an ember gets in that and we're not there, and then that catches on fire, it has potential to catch the house on fire. So again, start small, set yourself a plan, and then work out from that. Because if you try to tackle 100 feet all the way around your property and clearing of your driveway to get resources in, a lot of people are overwhelmed.
Yeah, no kidding. It's certainly big work, and not something that the layman would necessarily know to do for themselves. So, what services does the fire department offer Applegaters and getting to know their risk?
Yeah, great question. So Applegaters, through Fire District 9, you can call here. I will get with you. We will set up an appointment, and myself or my staff, Chief Wolford, will come out and we'll do a property walkthrough with you. And we can identify, we ask a lot of people to be prepared when we come out with either a roll of ribbon or a can of bright spray paint. And then we can walk around and identify what areas we need to clean up.
Yeah.
What do we need to do? Because a lot of times people just don't know where to start. And so we lay out a plan with them, With that process, we also have additional services that are available to
Mhm.
help them if they don't have the means of doing it themselves.
Mhm.
And one of the biggest services that we use here and we budget for is the Jackson County, um, yeah, I'm gonna forget this again, and here we are, because we just talked about this. So Jackson County Justice Crew, and the Justice Crew is a group of individuals, low offenders that they pull out of the jail, and they do fuels mitigation projects for not only the county, but also private residents.
Mhm.
And they can do upwards of a quarter acre, depending upon how many available bodies they have for that day,
Mhm.
and it costs $500.
Mhm.
And so what we do is I will go out, I will walk the property with you, we'll identify what project areas you want to have completed, and then the justice crew bills us, the fire district. We pay that bill through a pass-through that we have with the district uh, budget, and then we bill back the property owner for those funds reimbursed. So it allows us to get the project going. It allows us to get people the opportunity to gather the funds, knowing that they're going to have to pay the district back.
Mhm.
And the district started this program working with the Community Fuels District well before I came here.
Mhm.
And we are just trying to enhance that by really getting the message out there and letting people know that there's that availability. Also, there are several private contractors
Mhm.
that are listed in the phone book under fuels mitigation. If you look, you can get online and type in fuels mitigation in Southern Oregon, and a bunch of private contractors come up.
Uh-huh.
And then another place that people really don't think about tapping into is gardening services.
Mm.
So you could contact a local gardening service and have them come out and give you a quote on what it would take to get rid of the vegetation.
Yeah, and do it in a way that makes your house still look nice.
Yeah, and so again, one time might be two times that they have to come out to reach the project goal.
Uh-huh.
There's years ago, the community justice crew used to burn the vegetation if it was a burn day, as
Mhm.
they would go.
Mhm.
And that is something that they do not do anymore. And the county commissioners decided that they didn't want to allow that, from my understanding.
Mhm.
So the homeowners are going to be responsible to mitigate their large piles.
Okay.
Community justice crew does have, and it's a second fee,
Mhm.
the ability to bring out a chipper with two individuals and chip down the piles if that's what the homeowners wish.
Okay.
So again, really the bottom line is we'll come out, we'll walk through the property, and
Mhm.
then I can give the homeowners all that information at that time.
Wow. Yeah, seems like there's a lot available to people that
Yeah, there really
maybe
is.
they're just not taking advantage of. And well, maybe you would know better. Do you find that most applicators are, treating their properties to reduce risk, or is there still a lot of work to be done on most properties?
I would say, back in 1996,
Mhm.
this fire district, through the previous fire administration, Chief Phyllis, Jack Shipley, and Sandy Schaefer,
Mhm.
got together and they developed, and I say we as the fire district, I wasn't here again, they developed the first community fire plan, an amazing process. And they felt they got roughly 98% of the properties treated. And when I say treated, treated to removing fuels, getting them prepared and have a fighting chance to survive if we had a large scale fire come through the Applegate. That was almost 20 years ago. So we're coming in. So it completed in 2002,
Mhm.
and being that we're in 19 years later,
Yeah.
some of the properties have changed hands.
Uh-huh.
We've had an industry shift
Mhm.
in regards to agricultural crops
Mm.
here in the valley, and I can't say that I won't say that those people are not fire concerned, because they are. I don't know what their properties look like because I'm unable. As you drive around the valley, we can see we have large dead areas of timber because of the bark beetle infestation
Mhm.
that we had 7 years ago. And we're going to continue to see that with the drought and the drying of the conifers as well and all the other vegetation. So that's drying out.
Mhm.
Really, I think overall, a majority of our constituents are concerned, and it's enhanced. It's enhanced because of fires that we have seen.
Yeah.
I came here in 2016. 2017 was the Miller Complex fire that started off as 11 lightning strikes out off of Palmer Creek and Kenny Creek, and then eventually morphed into tying into another lightning strike fire, and that was burning into the Applegate.
Mm.
And so citizens started getting excited.
Yeah.
We held several community meetings, and I really appreciated the outcome to everybody that came.
Mhm.
And then we have just recently the Almeda fire.
Yeah.
And that Almeda fire, I think, has enhanced everybody's awareness from the standpoint of really what can we do? Because that was the really the first true wind event fire that Southern Oregon has experienced at that caliber.
Yeah.
We've had some smaller wind event fires, but nothing to that caliber.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's
And the
enlightened a lot of people. What do we need to do?
yeah, I mean the devastation was just in your face. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's sometimes what it has to take to get the fire lit under some people's butts. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, so yeah, you mentioned just so many factors, and obviously, reducing risk is incredibly dynamic, and it's always changing over time, and people really need to stay on it. So, I mean, what would you say responsible maintenance on your property looks like over a certain period of time? You know, like that seems like big work that the justice crew would come do. Is that something that people would need to repeat every year or every 5 years or?
Yeah. So in a lot of my meetings with property owners and trying to figure out a plan for them and what they're going to do,
Mhm.
we have identified just short scale projects.
Mhm.
And once the whole project is completed, if you stay on top of it and you identify, and we talked about the 100-foot distance clearing and starting off at 30 or 50 feet, if you start identifying that once you got all that 100-foot established, it should only take you in the winter months a couple hours a month just to keep up with some of the down litter. I mean, the leaves and things of that nature, because you've cleared out maybe some larger trees that were dropping more leaves.
Mhm.
And then you have the opportunity to really get after the larger vegetation, some of that buckbrush and manzanita, as
Mhm.
it's freshly coming up out of the ground. You can mitigate it with a weed whacker or even a hoe.
Mhm.
And so you really want to get to yourself into a position where it's not overbearing and you're not overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And that's going to be dependent on what property you're on
Yeah.
and how big is it.
Mhm.
If you live on a half-acre property, can you mitigate that 100-foot distance and it only take you a couple hours a month once you get it all resolved? It may. Or it may take you, you know, 5 months to keep on top of it, get you prepared coming into the fire season, and then you really don't have to worry about it until the fall again and re-mitigate it, fall through the winter.
Mm. Yeah. That makes sense. So just do the work up front, and then it should be fairly smooth sailing after that. But also important to be aware of your property and what's there, and just really,
Yeah, that's
really be
um,
familiar.
that's that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Is just trying to get out and people want to do the right thing in this community. It's amazing how many people contact me on a weekly basis to ask me questions about how do I do this, and then setting up those appointments. It's a great tool. It's a great opportunity. I encourage it. I encourage my staff to answer those questions if they can, to help them quickly over the telephone instead of necessarily waiting for me.
Mhm.
And I think we have a very Firewise overall community.
Yeah.
I really do. And we've got some great areas that have enhanced. A couple years ago, the Kublai area put together a Firewise program. We've got some Firewise stuff taking place down closer to Jacksonville on Wagon Trail. They just got done doing some stuff down there. We've got some stuff on Little Applegate that they've done over the years. We've got another community out in the Applegate looking at doing another Firewise program
Oh.
and getting all of those people together. And that's really neat because we didn't talk about that, and we probably should real quick.
That's what I was going to ask. I mean, if there's a group of, property owners who are interested in Firewise, who do they talk to?
Yeah, so Firewise is handled through Oregon Department of Forestry. And for those living here in Jackson County, you would want to reach out to the ODF offices in Medford. And if you live in Josephine County, you want to reach out to the offices in Josephine County, ODF office there in Merlin. And then they will get with you and get you the information for the Firewise coordinators.
Oh.
And then that person's going to come out. It's going to meet with the Firewise community coordinator or even the community as a whole, walk through everybody's properties, and they'll lay out, just similar to what I do, what they feel needs to be done and meet the standards for the Firewise program. And then a lot of times there's grant funds available for that to help assist with that. Early on, there was a lot of grant money, and people could come in and get it done and have very limited expenses out of their pocket. I'm not sure where they're at right this year with the grant stuff. And then once they're established, then they're recognized, and they get signs, and they're able to put them up in their community that they have been recognized now, and they get a certificate that all of their hard work has been acknowledged.
Yeah.
And it's just a good way for a community to get together and work through it. And there's I just got done working with CERT from Jacksonville, city's CERT team, and they actually were the ones, some of them lived up in the Wagon Trail area, and so the CERT got people involved to come and help do the property assessments. And so it was a good opportunity for them to get out in the community, people get to know them, walk around, get to know their neighborhoods, and huge success.
Yeah.
And we helped by partnering with them to open up our Station 5 so they can, because of COVID, they could have a nice area to meet, be spread apart, eat their lunch, and also have a restroom facility.
That's great. Those are two really awesome, well-established programs that have real effects for communities. So if you are interested in getting your neighbors together to talk about Firewise, but you're not sure if you want to be the leader on it per se, get a hold of us at AGA and we can help talk you through those sort of things and kind of give you the skills you might need to call a meeting like that and get everybody engaged and kind of take the next steps. So if you're feeling weary about it, but you really want to get involved with Firewise, let us know. And we can also help connect you to the ODF offices as well if that's something that you're needing for whatever reason. So we're here to help in any way that we can, bring neighbors together to talk about increasing fire safety in the Applegate.
Yeah, and I appreciate everybody's efforts. I appreciate those that are either listening in now or will be listening in on a later date. It's important that we all work together collaboratively through AGA, Applegate Fire District, people just on their properties. And the other thing that I will throw out to those on Facebook here is if you have recently moved into the area or the last several years and you do not have a red book, that's what it's been titled before I got here, but that is the fire plan book. All residents that participated, they made a copy for everyone, and that book was supposed to be passed on as the sale of the homes. That was part of the program development, is that book would go on to the next property owner so they could look to see what has been done and how to continue to mitigate that. And then some other information in there about prepping and fire and living within the forest, what that means. So if you don't have that book, please feel free to contact us here at headquarters. We're located at 1095 Upper Applegate Road. And our phone number is 541-899-1050.
Right on. So you've mentioned so many things that people can do to reduce their risk of wildfire damage on their property. Starting small with the 30, 60, 30,
3050.
30, 50, 30, 50, and then, thinking about 100, removing small debris as they can, making a plan, talking to neighbors. I mean, is there anything else that you just want to drill into people right now before fire season starts that is, the most important, most impactful thing to do?
Yeah, um, that is to really get a set plan in your household
Yeah.
and know where your important documents are. I encourage people, one of the things that I've learned over my years fighting wildfires and working for different agencies is after the fire, people saying, "Oh, I had a Rembrandt up on the wall and their house is completely destroyed and they don't have any documentation of that Rembrandt."
Mm-hmm.
Go around, take photos of your property inside and out, all of your valuables, because when it comes time, the unfortunate situation occurs and you do lose your home, you at least now have a digital copy of what you had. And it's a good way to sit down with the insurance agent and remember. I mean, it's amazing some of the things that we forget about in our homes that have a lot of sentimental value, but it's been in one place for so long and we don't remember that it's there until it's no longer there.
Yeah.
So I would encourage everybody to take the time to go around and look at their home, take photos, put it on a thumb drive, put it in a safety deposit box, or send it to another family member that lives out of the area. So that way they have that. And then also, know your area that you live in. Know what your escape route is going to be. And that's really a hard thing that we've been discussing here in the Applegate that I have with staff and with our fire board members is escape routes in general. And
Mm-hmm.
right now, because it's very difficult to set up a true escape route plan
Mm-hmm.
because we have all these different routes in different areas of our community. But if you live in an area that to get to your house, it's one way in and one way out, you need to now start thinking about what am I going to do? How am I going to survive if that route gets compromised?
Mm-hmm.
And do I shelter in place? Meaning, do I shelter in my house, make sure all my windows and doors are shut, make sure that I've got all my belongings um, safely secured, and or leave early.
Mm-hmm.
Leave early. There's no sense waiting to see. I mean, even if you packed up your small belongings, your little safety box, and you put it in the car and you left for a couple hours and you went into Grants Pass or Medford or Ashland and you realized, oh, the fire's passed through, I'm good, I'm going to go back. Versus waiting until the last minute. You've already been asked to leave, notifications have gone out through Citizens Alert,
Mm-hmm.
and you haven't left. Now you become a problem for us.
Mm-hmm.
So think about that. And when I talk about escape routes, what I mean by that is you get to the end of your driveway and then you have a choice to go left or right.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what direction the smoke is coming from
Mm-hmm.
and go the opposite direction
Yeah.
for the most part. I mean, I don't want to say it's common sense because it's not. It takes time to practice that, but just know your escape routes
Yeah.
and know that your family and everybody in your household knows those escape routes.
Yeah. I mean,
That's what I threw out there.
that's absolutely good advice. Speaking of escape routes, I did want to let people know about one more opportunity that's available to residents of the Little Applegate neighbor or region, we should say, and it's put on by a group called Prescriptions for Safety. They're a group of neighborhood leaders that are working with fire professionals and forestry professionals. Um, Looking at doing fuels treatment along possible major evacuation routes in that area. So we're talking specifically about Griffin Lane and Sterling Creek Road. This group is, yeah, taking a community-based collaborative approach to figuring out and assessing the fuels levels and the risk levels along those major evacuation routes, and have $80,000 in tentative funding to help reduce and treat those evacuation routes, which would just make evacuation easier in the event of a major fire, and those could also act as fuel breaks in the event of a major fire. So they're looking for people living on Griffin Lane and Sterling Creek to also to sign up for a property assessment and get involved with the group. I've put the link to apply as well as the contact information for Rich Fairbanks, who's one of the leaders in this group, in this video description. So if that interests you, go ahead and get in contact with those folks. And other than that, I just want to remind you that, there is so much information out there on the web and all over the place about how you can prepare your home and your family and everybody for a large fire event. AGA has created a wildfire resource page with just a condensed list of links to state and local agencies and, that have just a plethora of information on all of what we've discussed today and more. So if you want to check that out, that's on Applegate Valley Connect. Please do. Yeah, do you have anything else for us today, Chief?
No, I want to thank you for this opportunity and thank the AGA for collaboratively coming together and building this program.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. I'm excited to see where we can take this. I'm excited to see how we can get quick, pertinent information out to our constituents and really build on this program, and hopefully others will see it.
Yeah.
One last thing to throw out, hopefully if our county gets lowered here, we'll be doing Coffee with the Chief again. And that's another great opportunity to come in. Those are on the second Wednesday of the month. However, we'll be putting back up on our Facebook and on our webpage, applegatefd.com, when we're going to be starting those up again. But that's another good opportunity to come in, meet with me or meet with a staff member that's running it that day. I'm usually the one that's doing it. And I think with these programs like that we're trying here to get to our Facebook world people, I think it's going to be a great opportunity to keep enhancing the public education component of this. And I thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. And just if anybody has any really strong questions that they really want answered in one of these videos, please let either of us know. I'll put our contact information in the video description as well, because we want this to be a dialogue as much as it is just us talking at you. So thanks so much for joining us today, and stay safe.
Thank you. Do we have any